Hi, Martin here. Today I want to show you how to operate the Martinbuilt valve spring compressor. This is for your Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Mitsubishi 3.7 and 4.7 liter engines. And this comes complete with the plate, the hardware, and the retainer cup. Now this is a great tool for, let's say, you want to change out your valve springs or your valve stem seals, or while you're upgrading your camshafts, perhaps. You know, you're putting HO cams in, or the 08 and later model camshafts. What a great time to put in new springs and valve stem seals. All right, well, let's get started. Now I've got a 4.7 liter engine sitting right here. This particular one is an HO, but this is going to be the exact same if you're working on a 3.7, the non-HO, the HO, or your newer engines from 08 up to 13. Now, of course, you can do this with the engine in the vehicle, and I'm going to show you a clip on where I did that. But we're doing this here just for video purposes. It's much easier to get a shot of how to do it with the engine out. Okay, the first thing we got to do is uninstall the camshaft. You're going to need a timing chain wedge, assuming that you're not going to be removing the front timing cover and not messing with the timing chains at all. So you'll need one of these right here. And I'll put a link to all the tools and products I'm going to use in the video in the description down below. Check that out. Okay, with the timing chain wedge, and then let's see, we're working on the right cylinder head. Need this side facing up. All right, that's set there. Now we'll remove the sprocket. Now these are torqued to 90 foot-pounds. And no, this was not torqued to 90 foot-pounds right there. I had this removed earlier. Another thing you want to do before we remove this is mark your chain and your sprocket. Now I'm just going to use one of the timing marks right here. I'm not rotating this engine to top dead center or anything like that. So we know it goes right there. Now remove the sprocket. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove a few of the rocker arms. And what I like using, I took a distributor wrench and put a bend into it. And this works really well. Get right underneath the rocker and pop them out. Now you need to do it on ones that the lobe is facing upward. You can do it with some that are not, but do not do it on the ones where the valve is compressed, like this one down here. Yeah, I might be able to get that one. Yeah. There, we got them all but two. There we go. Now, one of the things you're going to need is a compression tester, and you're going to want one where you can detach the hose, and it has like your air compressor fitting on it. Now the hose is the only part you actually need. You don't need the compression tester. One of the other things you may want to get, especially if you have the dual spark plug cylinder heads, that's like your 08 through 13 4.7s, is a thin wall spark plug socket. This particular one, 6 inches long and has a magnetic tip on it, which I really like. That comes in handy, especially if you happen to break a spark plug off and there isn't the shaft of the spark plug, the insulated part of the spark plug there anymore. This will pull it right out. Now, another thing you definitely want to do before you get any further, before we start taking the springs out, get yourself some shop rags, and you're going to want to plug all the holes that lead down into the oil pan, just in case some of those keepers get away from you. That way you'll be able to retrieve them. Now when you do this, do one spark plug at a time and one side at a time. Don't remove both camshafts at the same time and do this. Because when we apply air to this, we don't want that engine to rotate at all. So by having the other spark plugs in there, that'll help keep that from happening. See how that socket works? It works, got a nice magnet tip on it. Now taking your hose here, and this has got to be a M14 attachment on here. Screw that in there. Now another thing I would probably recommend before you get too far is get a socket that fits over the retainer nice and just give it a nice light tap. And that is going to help break those keepers free from the retainer. Because after they've been on there for a while, they don't like to come apart so easily. Or this is going to help a lot. Now we can install the valve spring compressor with a Martinbuilt facing up. That way you know you don't have it upside down. And these 4 bolts can be almost finger tight. And what you're going to do to line this up, you're going to look down one of the holes here. You could have this bolt uninstalled if you like. Now looking down through the hole here, I can see that I'm directly over the intake valve stem. And now I can go ahead and snug these down. The reason these slots are here is because there's 3 different measurements between the 2 cylinder heads. Now, when doing the intake one, realize that this hole is cut at an angle. It's drilled at an angle. So do not cross thread it. Do not use any type of wrench to install it. Get it started by hand first. Now at this point is when you apply air. Now I would recommend 60 pounds of air. I wouldn't really go over that. You put anything over that, you could be forcing the piston down if it happens to be, closer to the top of the stroke. Because you can put 90 pounds to it and you're taking a chance of moving that engine, and you don't want to do that because you could lose the timing. Okay, we got the air turned on here, 60 psi. We take our retainer cup, we place it in here, and run the bolt down. Now once you got the keepers exposed, you can come in with a magnet and draw them right out. Just like that. Now you can back the bolt off and remove the retainer cup. Now just simply reach in and grab your spring and retainer. Now what I'm using here is a pair of hose pliers. They work quite well for removing a valve seal. And just grab a hold of those. There we go. And there you go. Alright, now taking your new valve stem seal, and I would always put some oil on there. And be very careful as you glide it over the stem. And now you can reinstall your spring. take your retainer cup, place it back in here. Now, when it comes to reinstalling those keepers, you can use a magnet to draw them out, but you cannot use a magnet to put them back in because it keeps drawing the keeper right back off the valve stem. So what I do is I got just a small little screwdriver. I love this thing. Put a little grease on the end of it, and then taking your keeper, put a little bit of grease there on the grooves of this where the stem is, and use the remaining part of this grease on the back side of the keeper. And that's your glue. And that will hold that right there. And as soon as you put this onto the stem of the valve, the screw will let go and the keeper will stay on the stem. This works really well. Coming in here with the screwdriver, just like that. All right, with our keepers back in there, we can bring the bolt back up. And then remove the bolt and then place it into the next hole. And that will automatically line up. Then taking the retainer cup, ready to do the other one, reinstall the retainer cup, run the bolt down, come in here with a magnet and draw them out. Bring the bolt back up, now install your new valve stem seal. There we go. Reinstall spring in the retainer. Run the bolt down. And then you can gently push the keeper around to the back side. Now with that cylinder done, you can go ahead and remove this plate and move on to the next cylinder. I would always recommend starting these bolts by hand. And there we are, ready to go on the next one. Go ahead and remove your air. Replace that spark plug. This would be a great time to put new plugs in if you need them. And move on to your next one. All right, and you just keep repeating this process, going from one cylinder to the next. Always reinstall the spark plug back into the hole after you're done with that particular cylinder. Then all you have to do is reinstall everything in reverse, put your camshaft back in, reinstall your rockers, then put your cam sprocket back on, realigning the marks back up from your sprocket to your chain. And you pretty much got this done. Now I'm also going to show you where I did this on the vehicle itself. I got an 04 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I'm replacing the valve stem seals on the driver's side rear cylinder. Now you'd think the passenger side rear cylinder would be the hardest, but it actually turned out to be the driver's side because of the brake booster and the steering column shaft and the ABS brakes. All that kind of got in the way. And this was also before I made a modification to the valve spring compressor where I cut out this notch right here. When I did this made it a lot easier to get the keepers in and out and get in there to do what you need to do. So I'll show you that video, and then I'm also going to show you how you can use this if you're doing the cylinder head on the bench. This is the very hardest one to do, but I actually got the best camera shot. It was the driver's side rear cylinder. The brake booster and master cylinder and the ABS, all that was right in the way. I had to use a gear drive wrench for this one. Yeah, I had a really hard time at first getting that stem seal there to come off. There you can see I'm taking a lot of care in running it over those grooves of the valve stem. Now you're going to see what a snug fit it is when you try to put this retaining cap back in there. I gotta compress the spring just a little bit. It snaps kind of right back in there. There we go. I like the little bolt feature I added to the retaining cap. I can spin that around real easily. You don't have to worry about getting these on upside down. It will not go in there upside down. So you don't have to ever wonder, did I get it right or not? Because if that retainer, when you release it and it comes up, if it's upside down, you'll know it. I actually wondered a few times if the keepers didn't spin around on me a little bit as I was trying to lower them down in there. Now if you're disassembling and reassembling a cylinder head that's off the engine, you can, like I have here, this is just setting on a couple of cylinder head stands. Now you could also do it without the stands, and when you're putting the valves back in, just place a shop towel underneath the combustion chamber, and that'll hold the valves into place while you're putting it all back together. What I'm actually doing on these cylinder head stands is I'm just putting a film of grease right along the edge of the valve there. I slide it into place, and the grease actually acts like a glue and holds the valve right there. Alright, then just like before, go ahead and install the valve spring compressor, lining up the hole with one of the valves. There. And then you only got to get these bolts snugged. Always use the bolts that are supplied with the kit. Never use the actual cam bearing bolts. These are too long. This is the newer style cylinder head, the dual spark plug. And when you're ordering valve stem seals, you get the valve spring with it. And this is the only way you can purchase them. Put the retainer in. Then you just move this bolt to the intake and do the same. All right, there you have it. Tool works awesome, and if you're interested in that, please check in the description down below, where you'll also find Amazon links as well. Please do all your Amazon shopping through one of those links, and the channel earns a small commission. Thank you. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Appreciate that. That helps out the channel immensely. And if you never subscribed to me before, please hit that subscribe button right down there and that little bell symbol right next to it, and that way you're notified the next time I upload a video. I want to thank you all for watching, and we will see you on the next one.